expenses it incurred during the rescue effort involving Flight 1549 in the Hudson River. "We are embattled," says New York Waterway CEO Arthur Imperatori Sr. "The question is whether we can survive." As for U.S. Airways, Crane's business says that following the landing of 1549 in the river, New York Waterway was unable to operate some of its ferry routes for nearly 48 hours. In addition, it paid employees overtime and incurred other expenses that it's still assessing as it prepares its claim against the air carrier. And beyond the financial aspect of the situation, Crane says that Mr. Imperator is miffed that U.S. Airways officials have yet to acknowledge his company's role. U.S. Airways says that that's not the case. A spokesperson said that since the January incident, airline officials have always been sure to point out that the first responders did a great job and will always be extremely grateful toward them. Excuse me, Mr. Imperatori, but that's a fairly long river. I would think that if you were boxed off from crossing at certain points, you could have gone to the north or to the south. There's some trouble down in Paradise, the Turks and Caicos, which has emerged as a bit of an offshore banking center. The United Kingdom has suspended the Constitution, the Parliament, and the government of the Turks and Caicos this yesterday afternoon following a damning report on corruption in the island's government. An official government probe in London found a high probability of systemic corruption or serious dishonesty. The British Overseas Territory Minister Gillian Meron announced this in the House of Parliament in London yesterday. She said, "Our government has formed the view that parts of the Constitution will need to be suspended, and we've decided to take steps to enable it to do so." Under the government's plan, the island's House of Assembly, its cabinet, and ministerial powers would be suspended, with all functions transferring to the territory's British governor. The Turks and Caicos has a population of about 30,000. It's known for its tourism as well as offshore financial center expertise. An inquiry into the island's administration was launched last year after a highly critical report by the House of Commons, which found a palpable climate of fear in the Turks and Caicos. At the center of the corruption claims is the island's premier, Michael Misick, who was alleged to have built up a multi-million-dollar fortune since he was elected to power in 2003. And this coming from the Royal Gazette this morning down in Hamilton, Bermuda. Debt ratings agency Moody's said yesterday that it may downgrade Bermuda's government bonds because the island's, quote, small and relatively undiversified economy is vulnerable to the effects of the global recession. The Bermudian finance minister, Ms. Paula Cox, said last evening that she was not surprised that Moody's might want to rethink Bermuda's ratings. She said representatives from Moody's would visit Bermuda within the next 3 weeks to conduct a more in-depth assessment. They will speak with officials from the government, the Bermuda Monetary Authority, as well as leading business people before making a final decision on whether to downgrade Bermuda's bond ratings. International financial services and tourism, the two big industries in Bermuda, of course, have been feeling the effects of the global downturn, and according to Moody's, this could weigh on Bermuda's currently very high ratings. Moody's also cited the Bermuda government's guarantee of Butterfield Bank's $200 million capital raise as a factor that it had also considered in launching its review. Moody's placed the island's A lowercase a1 foreign debt rating into A lowercase aa local debt rating on review for possible downgrade. Should Bermuda suffer downgrades from Moody's or its sovereign ratings from fellow ratings agencies, the result would be that money would be more expensive for the government to borrow. China announced this morning that it is cracking down on unqualified securities brokers after discovering that more than 60% of them had not passed professional exams. The China Securities Regulatory Commission will introduce new rules next month, demanding all brokers have standard qualifications and that all brokers work for only one firm at a time. This is being reported by the China Daily. Competitive practices, quote, among brokers may harm the rights of investors and affect the development of the securities market. Therefore, it was necessary to regulate the market, this according to an unnamed official. Small securities firms often hire lowly paid unregistered brokers on a commission basis and then distance themselves from them if investors complain. Only 30,000 of China's 80,000 securities brokers had passed qualifying exams as of the end of October, again according to the China Daily. After the financial crisis broke, China took great pride in its tightly regulated financial industry. However, despite strict rules, it is apparent that enforcement can be patchy. Chinese stocks lost over 65% last year, the steepest annual loss in the market's 18-year history. There are a lot of perks to being a United States Senator. You can eat in the Senate dining room, you can exercise in the Senate gym, you're the member of one of the world's most exclusive clubs, and you can say anything you want. You have to run for re-election only once every 6 years. Senator Charles Grassley, featured here, is a Republican, a high-ranking Republican from the state of Iowa. Mr. Grassley is actually known as a little bit of a liberal Republican and is generally regarded as a pretty sober thinker. Mr. Grassley, Senator Grassley, articulated some thoughts the other day that a number of people in the United States perhaps may have been thinking. Grassley suggested that AIG executives should accept responsibility for the collapse of the insurance giant by resigning or killing themselves. The Republican lawmaker's comments came during an interview Monday with the Cedar Rapids, Iowa radio station. They echo remarks he's made in the past about corporate executives and public apologies. But this time he went a little further in suggesting suicide. He said, quote, "I suggest, obviously maybe they ought to be removed, but I would suggest the first thing that would make me feel a little bit better toward them if they'd follow the Japanese example and come before the American people and take that deep bow and say, I'm sorry. And then either do one of two things, resign or go commit suicide. And in the case of the Japanese, they usually commit suicide before they make any apology." Of course, in feudal Japan, ritual suicide was considered an honorable death under the samurai warrior ethic. Japanese executives often take responsibility for scandals within their companies by issuing public apologies on camera and stepping down. It's rare, however, that they take their lives. Grassley spokesperson Casey Mills said that the senator is not calling for AIG executives to kill themselves, but only that those who accept tax dollars and spend them on travel and bonuses do so responsibly. Senator Grassley, she said, has said for some time now that generally speaking, executives who make a mess of their company should apologize as Japanese executives do. He says the Japanese might even go so far as to commit suicide, but he doesn't want U.S. executives to do that. It's just amazing. I don't know where it will end. But if we find anything more out today, we'll come back and tell you. If not, thank you for watching, and we'll see you tomorrow.